up, Cybonics and party people of the world? Welcome to the celebration event of Capacitor 3. When Capacitor was announced a few years ago, I actually wasn't sure if we really need Capacitor since we had Cordova and everything was kinda working. But now we are here, Capacitor 3 is released, and I must say, Cordova? I don't really need Cordova anymore. We only need Capacitor to build truly web-native applications with Angular, React, Svelte, Vue, whatever you can think of, because really Capacitor seems to grow in popularity. It has a lot of cool new functionality. It has already opened up to basically the whole web community and everyone who will or who wants to build a native application based on their web application code. Really, it doesn't matter if it's Angular or React or any kind of other framework. You can just throw in Capacitor. It will add the native platforms, you get access to native APIs, and that's a big deal. Therefore, in today's vlog episode, we want to talk about all the changes of Capacitor 3 towards the core, the plugins, the changes in terms of the developer experience for the CLI and the configuration, everything that we as well might expect still in the future from Capacitor. We are not going into a lot of code. I will show some examples, but if you want to see an example of migrating an Ionic or Angular application from Capacitor 2 to Capacitor 3, just let me know below the video. So without further ado, let's take off the party hat and get into work mode and see what Capacitor 3 offers for our applications. Alright, so let's start with the announcement on the official blog. I will try to put all the links below the video to the important part. So, May 19, Capacitor 3.0 finally released, and they actually got a nice video that you should definitely look. It kind of reminds me of some Apple presentations with all the sound and everything going on. And I will talk a bit more about the future of Capacitor and why I think they are doing this later. Besides that, the Capacitor homepage was actually also updated. It's now Capacitor.js since quite some time. And this as well kind of looks a bit like all the stuff Apple is usually doing. So they got a nice little introduction to everyone new coming to Capacitor now. Definitely something cool as well. One thing I wanted to put in right in the beginning, this announcement is good. It's a nice overview. If you're actually interested in the more technical stuff, I would recommend you also check out that's for later, the Capacitor 3.0 beta announcement, because that one actually also covered all the details about plugins and run command permissions and a lot more that we will talk about in a second. Once again, I will put that link below the video as well. So let's go through the announcement. First part, performance. Of course, with every new Angular, Ionic, Capacitor, or whatever version, we see increased performance. And they especially try to reduce the app bundle size and improve app launch time. How did they do this? Well, for one part, they pulled out all the plugins from Capacitor Core. In the past, when you used Capacitor, everything was basically batteries included. So you only installed Capacitor and you had access to the camera, file system, everything like that. This has changed, and with Capacitor 3, you now need to install all of these things from separate packages. Do we got a list of plugins? Yeah, I've prepared everything. So here's the list of Capacitor plugins that were previously core plugins and are now in their own package. Now, how does this look like? I have an application somewhere. I actually created this for you. So here we are inside a Capacitor 3 application, Capacitor Core 3.0, Capacitor 3, everything. And if we now take a look at something we had like this before, you imported the plugins from Capacitor Core and then destructured it to use something like the clipboard. Now, if you would like to use this today, you would do this a bit differently. You would first go ahead and npm install the Capacitor clipboard package. And once you've added the clipboard package, you would now remove this and change the import to import clipboard from add capacitor. No, that's wrong. Add capacitor clipboard, just like this. It's not a huge change. If you're using a ton of plugins in your old applications, the migration take a tiny bit of time, but usually it should be pretty straightforward and take you like maybe half an hour if you have a lot of pages, or just 10 minutes otherwise. So that's really the only, well, I would say only breaking change. But it's actually not really breaking, since they even added this deprecation warning here. So maybe it even works like this anymore, which is kind of strange to me, because I don't think it should work. Anyway, that's about plugins and the update to their own separate packages. Of course, there are tons of more community plugins. These are just the Capacitor core plugins. They were previously in the core and now in their own packages. They didn't mention it in this one, but they also mentioned before that you now don't have to manually import plugins like community plugins for Android. That was actually mentioned in this old update. So Android plugin auto loading. Previously, you always had to add this to the main activity. I never knew why that was actually necessary. With Capacitor 3, you no longer have to. I think the community plugins might not be ready for this yet. So be aware if you're using community plugins that you maybe still have to do this unless they are updated for Capacitor 3. But in the future, hopefully, we will no longer talk about that part in our tutorials. Gonna be a lot easier. Okay, lazy loaded web plugins. Yeah. In the past, you might also have encountered problems when you import a plugin and it also had a web implementation, and you had the import for the web statement here. And then suddenly on a device, it might have actually used the web implementation instead of the native implementation. So now they definitely made sure that on every platform that you're using, only the native code is really loaded. So if you're using a plugin on iOS, it will definitely use the iOS implementation of that plugin. Gonna give a bit of security, and also will reduce the bundle sizes. Okay, enhanced developer experience. I was kind of happy about hearing this. They now got a run command, which actually works pretty good. I already gave this a try. npx cap run, something like this. So you can also run npx cap run ios -- list to see, yeah, great, to see a list of all the available platforms. Usually this should print out all your simulators, same for Android. I don't know, I don't have any Android emulator installed or virtual device. You should see that. I haven't added the platform, that's also great. But if you connect your device, it should also come up here. And then you can just use the target ID like I did in this statement. One thing I noted here, or actually two things. First thing was, don't immediately run this, because you will get an error as you haven't used or selected a signing identity for your iOS application. So you have to at least once open Xcode, select your team. That's necessary to deploy an application to your device. If you just run it on a simulator, I think you don't need to select a team, but if you want to put it onto your device, select a team at least once inside iOS. Second thing is, this actually didn't really work with live reload. So it definitely made a native build and I was able to put it on my device, but with live reload, it wasn't really working yet. Also, from the capacitor run command, I can't see anything about live reload in here. And what I noticed as well is that I previously used a live reload that looked like this. Ionic Cap Run iOS live reload. This was just something that I could debug with Safari. That command somehow installs or tries to enable capacitor, then installs some npm packages again. I think there's a little issue with the CLI. So maybe if you encounter a problem like this, check out the GitHub repositories or watch out for any update in the near future. because I really love my live reload with Capacitor. I don't know why why it wasn't working with the new run command. So this really results in an error. We will have to see how that plays out in the future, but definitely the run command to directly test your native application is new and is definitely a great enhancement as well. Then we got TypeScript configuration files. I know a lot of people are happy about this part. If you checked out your project in the past, you had capacitor config.json. Do I have an example from an old JSON? There it Okay, that's how it looked in the past. Let me copy this over, and that's how it's looking by now. So here we had the past JSON. We had no type safety. We didn't actually know what to include. And now we can write this using the capacitor config interface, which puts everything that we can use in here. We got code completion. That's really a cool thing. Also, you could now use different values in here. So inside the JSON, it's of course hard to maybe change your app ID. That should be possible within the TypeScript file as well. The initial announcement in the beta phase said that you could have different capacitor configurations for different environments like development, integration, or production. I haven't seen something about this inside the guide so far, but it's definitely mentioned here as well. So you could have different configurations of the environment, blah, blah, blah. I'm not sure how this works, if we just have to put capacitor.dev.config in here, or if we need any special setup. I will definitely keep you updated on that as well once we have a little video, a quick win on the whole migration part. And then I will also cover that. But trust the team, it will definitely work pretty soon. Might not be a guide on this yet, but very soon. Okay. I'm talking way too long already. We got the updated permissions API. That's pretty cool. Every plugin can or should now integrate this permission API. That means you can directly tell the plugin when you want to ask a user, for example, to this permission to use the camera. If you check out the capacitor plugins, you will note, for example, let's quickly dive into the camera plugin, source, definition. You will see inside the interface, we got get photo, and then we got check permissions and request permissions in here as well. And they have added a little guide for all the community plugins. So basically everyone should integrate this into their plugin with a permission state, and then you can easily for every plugin ask for permissions right at the time. Don't do everything right in the beginning. We've talked about this quite often in our app reviews. Do it at the appropriate time, maybe even on button click when the user has said something about that. We got the community investment. I'm not sure if I mentioned this before. If you're new to Capacitor or Capacitor 3, there's a community hub that holds basically all interesting plugins and projects around Capacitor. They have a guideline for creating plugins. If you don't find something that you need inside the core, just go to the Capacitor community and search for the right plugin in here, like Bluetooth, Blue, yeah, something like this. You will find a lot of plugins in here as well. Now, this is basically the core of the changes. Then we got something about the projects. They got a new, or actually I don't think it's very new, and I shouldn't do this. I want to get back. They got milestones, which you can easily check out if you're interested in the future and the upcoming topics, as well as a whole board on all the projects that's more completely Ionic related. I actually don't know why I'm in project 7, capacitor engineering. So here you can see what's going on right now. It's really very open and transparent if you want to see what they're currently working on, what you might expect in the near future. As well, they're using GitHub discussions. Perhaps I've mentioned this before as well for Capacitor. If you got any questions, just put them in here. And as well, if you couldn't find a core plugin or a community plugin, they also got this project for proposals where you can put in issues if you want to see a certain kind of plugin, Mixpanel, support, Google Places, background tasks, share, really a lot of open proposals. Maybe one day yours is gonna make it into the Capacitor plugins as well. Finally, let's talk a bit more about the future in another project, Ionic Portals. Maybe you've seen this come up this week. If you're just an Angular, React, whatever web developer, this might not be too interesting for you. This is more focused towards mobile developers. Portals is trying to bring Capacitor to native iOS and Android developers so they can easily integrate WebView with Capacitor functionalities into the native application. So it's a bit different from web developers bringing native stuff into their project. It's basically the opposite direction. But it's gonna bring new people to Capacitor, that's for sure. And that's also why I think Capacitor has an interesting future. As we've seen from the landing page of Capacitor, it's really polished and they're putting a lot of effort into Capacitor. I feel like Capacitor is becoming kind of the Ionic flagship. I don't know what they're after in the future, really, and how they're gonna handle Ionic and Capacitor. Ionic is more the UI. Capacitor somehow has grown a lot over the last time in popularity. It got a lot of installs. A lot of people are integrating this, and Ionic is working hard on this kind of new approach that they call web native. You have to check out this page, Web Native Tech. Could actually be, I would really like to integrate something like the Star Wars theme here. In a galaxy far, far away, while great. Meanwhile, new ways of building apps have emerged and web developers are now pushing the limits. It could really be in Star Wars introduction. Basically, they want to move away from hybrid and to this term web native. Maybe I can adapt this and use this in the future. Of course, noticing or mentioning Capacitor in here for both web developers that want to have native applications as well as native applications that want to have a part of web functionality. For the future, they also mentioned in this guide that they want to, first of all, put focus on stability. I think that is a very good idea, because if more and more people are using this, and with every major release you crush like their whole code base with a lot of breaking changes, that never feels good. I can still remember how we got from AngularJS to Angular. It never felt good. Also with Ionic 1, 2, 3, 4, all those huge, big, massive changes wasn't really a fun for developers. So I hope stability in the future is gonna be the focus of Capacitor, so people are really enjoying it. Second thing is they actually want to make testing easier. I haven't heard about that before, but as I just recently worked on some testing tutorials, I think that is a good idea. Testing, especially on mobile devices, is kind of hard. Testing web is possible with Cypress and stuff like that, or unit tests with Angular are also quite easy. But I think going for this might be a good idea. We will see what they're working on in the future. And of course, there will be more focus on this web native part. They want to be available for all libraries, not just Angular React, and they are already. So you can basically drop in Capacitor into any project from which you want to build a native application. And I think that is kind of a huge opportunity for Capacitor. And I think this might actually be in a few years the main focus from the Ionic team. I don't know how they're going to structure their projects. I don't know if they are making any money from Capacitor or more from the enterprise stuff they have going on with Ionic. But they also noticed, I think, that Capacitor got so much attention and so many people are coming to Capacitor all the time that they just have to put more resources into Capacitor. And with Capacitor 3, we see a great new version that's faster, smaller, simpler. Yeah, I can really confirm that's the case. So give it a try, check it out in your project, and let me know if you want to see something about the migration in real code tutorial as well. Alright, and that's it for the Capacitor 3 episode. Actually, the video was a bit longer than I expected. I didn't thought we have to talk so long about all those features, but I really wanted to present you everything that's new with Capacitor 3, everything that you should take care of, and from now on, you can just give it a try. Install it in your projects. You can just install the latest version of Capacitor now for the core, for the CLI, update your native project, or you could also maybe wait until I create another video guide on how to migrate your application in case you are not that fine with the guide available, since we need quite a few changes, especially on iOS, towards all the folders and naming and pod files. So give it a try. If you feel adventurous, you are for sure gonna make it. Otherwise, you can also bet on me that I will create a video for that in the near future. At this point, I would really love to know why you're still using Cordova, or why you prefer Cordova. If you've actually used Capacitor, let me know in the comments, because for me, Capacitor is definitely choice number one when I'm starting new Ionic applications, as I can still use Cordova in it and it brings so many benefits. At this point, Capacitor 3, really there's nothing else for me available. Therefore, this week, go out, update your applications to Capacitor 3 and enjoy the new functionalities. And of course, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not yet a member of the Simonics community. I will hopefully catch you next week, like always. So have a great day and happy coding, Simon.